Recorded live on the turf at Mad Lab Training Studio in Eldersburg, Maryland. This is the Time to Win podcast with Alex and Dan. Now let's get this podcast started.
Dan, welcome back to the podcast. All right,
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
It feels like it's been forever since we went on the air.
It really does. It's my fault. I've just been busy and out of the country. And
it's only been like 2 weeks, though, right?
I guess that's true.
Yeah.
It felt like a month.
So I'm sitting there at my kitchen table yesterday,
all right.
and I was just sort of like doing what I do best, mouth hanging open, eyes unfocused, staring off into the distance, right?
Thinking about life's biggest challenges.
And then I got kind of bored, so I just yelled over, "Hey Alexa," right? Play Time to Win podcast with Dan and Alex, and boom, just like that.
No, it didn't.
It did. And it was the episode we did about labeling, right?
Okay.
And I sat there. We actually sounded like reasonably intelligent. I was.
That's all I go for every day.
Reasonably, right?
Reasonably.
Yeah. So.
Are you sure it was the right one?
I did.
If it sounded intelligent?
Could it? Yeah.
It was our voices. It was our voices, and we sounded like we knew what we were talking about. So it was pretty cool.
It must be an AI trick that Mike did for us.
So, but it's funny because like I never remember anything we talk about.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting here listening to our podcast. And I'm like, oh yeah, we talked about that. Oh yeah, we talked about that. Dan, this thing is a gold mine, right? And I wish I could remember everything we talk about because it's so cool. The stuff we talk about is stuff I'm interested in. I have a good
awesome.
conversation partner. The podcast just flows, and I was just so tickled with that. But then I was also thinking, where in the world does all this stuff come from? Like these ideas they pop into our head, and half the stuff that pops into my head, no, way more than half, like 90% of the stuff that pops into my head, it's gone in a second, right? And I'm like, I get this great idea, I'm like, hell, I gotta go write that down. And by the time I get to a piece of paper to write it down, it's gone. Like, I don't even know what it was.
That was the same issue.
Yeah, and so this thing is a gold mine because it captures the stuff that we were talking about that sounded interesting and sounded cool when we thought of it. And I think we do a lot of like on stage, on set thinking, right?
For sure.
At least I do, and because we come in here, like honestly, viewers, we come in here, we have no script at all, right?
No script.
But here's what I wanted to say. Okay, listeners, thanks for joining us at the podcast today. Everybody, sit down, put down your phones, okay? Get out your pencil and paper and get ready to take notes because this session is going to be gold, Dan. It's going to be gold.
It's going to be gold.
And if I had to name today's episode, it's like Dan Spins the Wheel or Dano's Lightning Round or something like this because like I had a thought storm this morning. And I like 3 days ago, I was telling you, I got a real zinger for us this week.
You did.
And I thought more about it, and I thought, and I was like, oh no, that's a really selfish topic. It's all about Alex, right? And I was like, I can't.
Good subject.
It was a pretty cool subject, but I'm not sure I really want to like put the rest of the world in position of having to listen to it.
Well, let me call a timeout.
Okay.
It's my first time out. I have two more. But do I get to find out what that is? Because I've been curious all week.
I'll tell you.
And holding my curiosity back for this podcast is very tough for me.
Yeah, but don't forget, Dan, curiosity made the monkey famous.
It did. It did. It made the monkey famous.
So here's my list of things we could talk about, right?
Right.
Comfort is overrated. And
I like that one.
I love opening with fact. Comfort is overrated. Convinced me otherwise. But then I had another one, right? It just it fell right out of my brain onto the paper. Fun is not a strategy, right? Fun is not a strategic goal. And then number 3, having the wits and the discernment to know when to do nothing, right? Because we're an action species, right? Okay, that's number 3.
Those are really 2 and 3 are, I mean, I love 1 because I try to do lots of things that way, but 2 and 3 are things that I have not really thought about.
Yeah.
And are really interesting. Keep going. You have more?
I got more. This is awful. Yeah, my brain was exploding this morning. Dan, full admission, I'm highly caffeinated. I'm well slept, right? I'm super motivated. The thoughts are just churning in my head, and I want to get out there and tear it up.
Yeah.
Number 4, try something. Try anything. If it doesn't work, quit. Try something else. Okay, right? Fair enough, right? Number 5, recognizing the sweet spot and having the sense to stay there, right?
That's a tough one.
Right. Okay.
For sure.
Yeah. And I was thinking about
What
this.
made you even think about these things?
Okay.
These are high level philosophical questions.
Well, that's the nature of this podcast, isn't
It's
it?
pretty cool, I'd say.
Okay, and then the last one is I didn't even write it down because I thought it was too selfish, right? But the topic was from hero to elder. Okay, so
A story about Alex McClung.
I know, right. So I'm okay. So I'm neither, but that was something that I've been thinking about for a really long time. Like for 2 or 3 years, I've had this thing on paper.
Wait,
And-
why do you think? I don't even know where to start with. Alex, there's so much here. Now I'm not sure. What do you want to do?
Well, it might be fun, like if producer Mike were to give us like 5 minutes on each topic. We just blitz through them all, right? We call this episode Dan's Lightning Round, right? Boxers or briefs, Coke or Pepsi, right? Squats or deadlifts.
So we actually used to do a podcast that was sort of like that, called Odd Thoughts Podcast, and we had a random question generator, and we would not know. So 3 of us would sit there and on this, in these chairs in Mike's house, and then Mike would be ask the question over a thing, and we would sit there, and then we would just start going on it. And we would inevitably turn it into some kind of a philosophical debate on whatever.
Right.
Which one of those do you want to talk about, Mike? When I look over here, just so you guys know, I'm looking at Mike.
Which one can we monetize?
I constantly look for Mike's approval.
I like them all. I don't know that I have a preference on what is the most uncomfortable for you?
The most uncomfortable?
Oh, because that's where we're going to go.
Yeah, well, I live in a constant state of discomfort anyway, so I don't think any of them are uncomfortable for me. What was number 2?
Number 2 was fun is not a strategic goal.
Well, let's start with number 1. Let's rip through some of them and then spend time on some of them.
Number 1, Dan, fact, comfort is overrated.
Comfort is overrated.
Discuss.
Because life is about being it's things relative to other things. I can't speak that word right now. So, for example, you can't tell if something is uncomfortable if you haven't been comfortable, right? You can't tell something is weird if something isn't normal.
Right,
So
right.
discomfort is super important so that you understand when you are comfortable, and then you can have those happy moments, right? So you can have that's why human beings do everything on a trend, right? Everything is relative.
Okay. So here's a deep
Relativity.
relatively.
I was so close.
Relativity.
Relativity.
Okay.
Life is about relativity.
Okay.
That's what I was trying to say.
So in psychology they call this the vampire test. Okay, would you rather be a vampire or would you rather be human? Right? And lots of people say, I'd rather be human or I'd rather be vampire.
Yeah.
But you can't know what it's like to be a vampire.
Sure,
right?
you have nothing to base it on.
You have no relativity.
Right.
Right. So the relativity test. Right. But I
makes
get that
sense.
with comfort. Right.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I heard it from somebody once. I don't know why I wrote it down. Maybe I heard it from Mark Twight. Maybe I heard it from Dan John. I'm not sure. But comfort being overrated, right? And I got to thinking about this. Sometimes I really enjoy my comfort, right?
For sure.
Right? But there's some people that seek comfort as a goal.
Because discomfort breeds change.
Well, right. Okay.
And
that's-
discomfort breeds improvement.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. So discomfort then is a necessary thing.
A necessity for any kind of growth.
Okay, great. So maybe
A precursor, maybe.
So maybe I should have rephrased the opener, right? Dan, fact, pain is necessary.
Pain is necessary.
Are you going to challenge me on that?
I can't challenge you on that.
Okay. Are we on to number 2? Or
We're on to number 2, yes.
Number 2. What was number 2?
Fun.
Fun is not a strategy. Okay, and here's the context of it.
Yeah, tell me, because this is very interesting to me.
Okay, so I was reading a book, right? Imagine that, Alex reading a book, right? I didn't even know the guy could read.
He's literate. He's literate.
He's literally something. So I was reading a book called Let My People Go,
Right.
Surfing. Okay. Right? Yeah, right. Like, what did Moses say to Pharaoh? Let my people go.
Right.
So what did Yvon Chouinard, the founder and, I guess past owner of Patagonia, what did he say? Let my people go surfing. Okay. And
a little different.
Yeah, a little different. And, I really respect Chouinard's leadership philosophy and all the things that he's done with Patagonia and how he's tried to turn it into a force for good, not just a clothing company, right?
Right.
Yeah, and they make pretty good clothing too.
For sure, very popular.
But yeah, Chouinard was like trying to engage Patagonia employees about what was going to be their strategy or what were their corporate values, and somebody said, well, fun. And Chouinard was like, no, absolutely not. Fun is not a goal. Fun is something that happens coincidentally. Okay? But fun as a goal, will destroy everything else, right? You go to Patagonia and you say, man, we got a lot of background noise here. Are they having fun?
Jack Gilbert, can you not bounce that? Sorry. It did have a good beat, for sure.
Because you're about to go viral on the internet.
My bad.
So they were like, okay, well, what are we here for at Patagonia, right? And if you've ever looked at the ads for Patagonia, they say things like, "Don't buy this jacket," right? Because you don't need it. I mean, buy it if you really do need it, but do you need another jacket, right? Because when we make a jacket, there's a carbon footprint that goes with it, right? And so they had this great ethos and this great sensibility about what is the societal impact, the negative impact of the stuff we're doing here, even if the intention is good, right? And so anyway, somebody would say, well, fun, we should do fun because that's what we all like to do, and that's the reason people buy this gear so they can go out into the wilderness or go outside and have fun.
But there's always a negative footprint on anything that you do. There's always a positive and negative because life is about balance.
Yeah, and so on the surface, fun as a strategic goal sounded good, but it was self-serving, right? And I think Chouinard, in his wisdom, recognized that fun as a goal, like a corporate pursuit, would undermine and dilute everything else that they were trying to do. And so he nixed that and said, no, we're not going to do fun. Fun is not a goal for us.
That's interesting to me.
Yeah.
Because, would the fear be...
I'm not saying don't have fun.
No,
fun is a good thing to do, but
would the fear be like, if the goal is fun, then things get so diluted and extreme?
Yeah.
Right? Because then you're like, I need to have fun. What was fun today? We've doing the same thing. Now we have to do something, step up. Now we have to step up. Then we have to step up.
I don't know. I don't know about escalation.
And then it probably messes up productivity from whatever you're doing.
But yeah, okay, right. So that's a great corporate measurement, right? Productivity.
You're right. So for example, like if somebody is like, I want to have fun, and they're like, I'm going to go out and I'm going to have a beer.
Yeah.
So then they go drink a beer, and they had fun, and they do that for 2 days. And they're like, actually, it'd be more fun if I had 2 beers. And then more fun if I started doing this. Okay. And have more fun, I'm out late at night, now I'm doing drugs, now I'm like whatever. And at some point, you become super unhappy.
Right.
Because you can just latch on to one. I don't know, that's where my mind goes with it.
So I was thinking if you make fun a corporate strategy or a personal goal in your life.
Yeah.
Let's say you might have 5 goals out there. Or let's say you just have 2 for sake of simplicity. Right?
Yeah.
I want to save the world, and I want to have fun. Okay. Wait a minute.
I kind of like that.
Right. So, like on any given day, you're in this conflict with your different goals, right? And how do I balance that stuff? And if you have fun as a goal, I mean, let's say I want to save the world and I want to make money. Okay. You can take fun off the table for a minute. But if you say I want to save the world and I want to make a lot of money doing it, right? At some point you're going to be in
at
conflict.
Odds,
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah, and
but any goals would be like that, correct?
They would, right? And so let's say as an entity, let's say as a podcast, right? We have like 5 goals, and it's going to be really hard to stay focused when we got that many goals, right?
Right.
And I think that was the thing that Chenard was focusing on.
Well, I'm going to have to respectfully disagree with Chenard.
Oh, that's awesome.
Based on your own argument that you just kind of made, because I think that anything that earlier I was like, life is about balance, right?
Right.
And then trying to maintain that balance. Same thing about working in a gray area and stuff like that. Like all of those things are important. So whatever goals that you decide to come up with, you're going to have to toe some kind of line.
Yeah.
And the better that you're able to do that, the better off you're going to be. So I don't think it matters as long as you don't have a singular goal, then I think you should be fine for the most part. Because if you're like, I just want to make money, there's going to be some things that go around that, right?
Yeah.
If you're like, I just want to have fun, there's going to be things that come around that. I just want to save the world. It's a noble goal, but at some point you're going to really suffer and things are going to go downhill. Right? It's just going to be right. So I think that if you have some like good, strong beliefs centered around some good goals, both personal and professional, then I think that's the best that you're going to be able to have the best part of you that you could be.
That's awesome.
If that makes any sense.
It does. It does.
It's not the most well said audience, but you get my meaning, hopefully.
Yeah, but everyone's got their pencils down, or they've got their pencils in hand, they've got their paper, they're taking notes, and hopefully at some point we're going to start getting calls, and the listeners are going to dial in and say they're going to want to participate in the discussion.
Well,
right?
I mean, I've gotten a few calls about this already.
Yeah.
Because I can hear my phone vibrating, but phone's down, we said, so
Yeah, we're not going to.
We'll have another podcast where we answer all the phone calls.
So that was number 2. Fun's not a strategy.
We beat the piss out of number 2.
All right, Dan, here's the next one, right? We are compelled to action at all times, right? I mean, we're a species, we're people that we don't do well doing nothing, right?
For sure.
But sometimes, and this is number 3, right? Have the good sense to know when to do nothing, right?
That is very difficult. For me, anyway.
Right.
Because I start to feel when I do nothing, there's times where I'm like, I don't know how much of, and I think a lot of people struggle with this, right?
Yeah.
You don't know when you should be doing something. You don't know when you should be doing nothing. And sometimes from either direction, you can feel guilt. Because they're like, so like, for example, like I might do nothing for a day. And then I'm like, while that was relaxing at some point became not relaxing because then I'm like, how much of nothing should I do? And should I be being productive right now? And then I'm like, is that my own brain in my way?
Right.
So, and then it's also like, what are the time measures that you should be looking at? Should you be looking at things weekly, monthly, daily? So, and that's where I feel like that question gets really confusing, but it's a super important question, right? And if you knew that and knew exactly when you should be doing something versus doing nothing, I mean, that would significantly improve your life, your anxiety, happiness, like all sorts of things.
Right. So like all of these questions, they came from like some event in my life, right?
Okay.
That like threw me off, right? So here I am, once upon a time, right? I think it was like maybe 1991, 92.
It's a good year.
I'm not sure I've had a bad year.
I like to hear that.
Yeah, it's the best day ever, right?
It's the best day ever.
And I was a production supervisor working the night shift, right? And I had this crew, and we were really good. The crew was awesome, and we worked well together. But there was always a little bit of friction, and it's just going to be that way whenever people are together. So I'm sort of like walking around the production floor and checking on stuff, and somebody comes up to me semi-frantic, and they're like, "Billy called me a butthead." Right.
Awesome.
I mean, I'm paraphrasing, right?
Right.
I mean, somebody was like upset about this thing, and my first inclination was to interfere and to get involved, right?
For sure.
But I recognized this. There's somehow like the lights clicked on for me, and I was like, okay, so what did you do? It's like, well, then I punched Billy, right, or something, or I called him a name, or
right.
I called him a name back or something, and I'm not going to work with Billy anymore. And I'm like, okay, right. So do I get involved or do I not get involved, right? That's the thing. And almost always, I have found over the years, the best thing is to not get involved, or at least stop and ask a couple of questions, right?
That is very good advice.
You see two guys in a bar, they've had too much to drink, and it's coming to blows, right? Do you step in? No. Right? Dan, I'm telling you, don't get involved, okay? Right?
You're not kidding. You're right. You are right.
Because that's not going to end well, right?
No.
You know, like my wife comes to me and she's all wound up about one thing or another, right? And she doesn't want me to get involved. She just wants me to listen, right? But me, right, being monkey brain Alex, all I want to do is get involved, right?
Right.
And that's the genesis of that statement. Have the sense to know when to do nothing, right? Let that thing play itself out. Right, you know, like when trains collide. Okay, don't get in there and try and stop the trains from colliding. Let the collision finish, and then you can come in and help mop up the damage. Okay, that
is actually excellent advice, and something I've never thought of. I've thought about it in a generic sense and tried to put it in play, but I've never thought of it specifically like that, and I've never heard it come to words like that. Even in any book that I've ever read, which is pretty cool to hear that, and super important.
Right. So
because I want to get involved in everything.
I know.
All the time.
I know. I'm the same way, and you know, overwhelming majority of the time,
overwhelming.
When I get involved, it makes things worse.
Yes. yes. 100%. So it's funny that you say the bar thing. Because I've been in bars before and sat there and two people started getting loud.
Yeah.
And in my own mind, I don't know what it is. And I'd be like, it's almost like I go, whoa, in my head. And I'm like, the only person that can fight in this bar is me. And it's like, and I was like, where do you even think of these things, Dan, you idiot?
Yeah.
So it's even just stuff like that. And then another really good point that you made. Because what happens when I get involved in there?
Right.
I'm inevitably going to get physical with somebody, cause more of an issue because now you have three people. So it's not a good idea. One of the great things you said though is when people come to you for a problem, and sometimes people just got to work their own shit out, and sometimes they just need an ear so that they can work it out. You know, you giving them the answers, sometimes for some people feels in a way almost insulting, and then two. You're just kind of here, somebody has problems. It's almost like you giving them money to make their problem go away. Right. Instead of just letting them work itself out and asking some good questions. So,
yeah.
Good advice, Alex.
Okay. So, that one's right up there with, the one we talked about a couple weeks ago where we said, take 2 seconds, right?
Take
the
2
best
seconds.
Advice that you ever got in your life, and my answer was take 2 seconds. Right?
That's a good. Sometimes for Dan, it's got to be 20 or 30 seconds.
Yeah, Dan, why don't you go stand outside until the sun goes down?
If you ever hear an awkward silence when somebody talks to me, then you'll know that I'm really struggling with that advice right there, and I'm doing the best I can at that time.
Okay, so let's see here. I'm going to skip number 4.
What was number 4?
Number 4 was just try something, do something, right?
Okay.
You want to talk about that?
Talk about it.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think we should. We should talk about it.
All right.
Give me the context of it, but I do agree, in theory, with the general statement.
Okay. So let's pretend that you've vetted number 3, which was know when to do nothing, and you've thought about it, and you've gone and stood outside in the rain for 10 minutes, and you
Right.
really, and you know now that you need to do something. You know that you need to get involved, but what are you supposed to do, right? And my idea, whenever I don't know what to do, when I know that I must do something but I don't know what it is, then I just try something. And inevitably the feedback loop happens so fast you'll know if you got it right or wrong.
So I have 2 things with this. One, I think people overthink the stuff that they actually want to do, and they get that paralysis by analysis, right? Number 2, oh man, I see. This is why we write things down. I already forgot what number 2 was, and that one was really important. Say what you just said again.
I don't know.
Sorry, everybody.
What did I say? I don't even know. I said when you've thought about it and you've come to the conclusion now that you must get involved, but you're not sure what the involvement is. And my statement was,
Oh.
do anything.
I got it. So it's the same reason, like when somebody comes up with an idea at work or whatever, a lot of people, their first instinct is to tell you why it wouldn't work.
Yeah, yeah.
A great man once told me, who I don't even remember who it was, so maybe they weren't so great, but whoever it was great advice. They were like, say the stuff that why you think it would work first. Start with that, and then later on you can start to do the other things.
Right.
And I think a lot of people don't do that, and then they miss out doing on a lot of things that they're passionate about, and that might have really worked out for them. And even if it doesn't work out, sometimes the process of just trying it just makes you better and have more fun in whatever you're going to do.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely. When I was a little kid, and I'd be getting on my mom's nerves, she'd say, "Go outside," right? And
I've said that to Jack before.
Yeah, I know, right?
Go outside. Just
Yeah.
go do something.
and do what? I don't care.
Right.
Just
I've said that
something.
exact words. Yeah.
Something, anything except what you're doing right now, right?
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, that turned out to be great advice, and that has led me down so many weird and interesting and, I don't know, instructional, educational opportunities, right? About
Yeah.
what to do, what not to do. Led me to see interesting sites, like. But yeah, but when I was bored, and my mom would say, like, I wasn't even getting on her nerves. I was just complaining about being
Yeah,
bored. She
for
said,
sure.
Just go outside.
So this is great parenting advice, not
Yeah.
just to go outside, but I mean, you could write a whole book about it.
Yeah.
But I think too many times, especially now with like, you have all these places to go and you have electronics that do whatever that you want them to do. Sometimes as a parent, you feel like you have to consistently create your own kid's fun.
Yeah.
But really, great parenting would be let your kid create their own fun, because that will help them in skills throughout their whole entire adulthood for the rest of their life, I think.
Yeah, totally agree. Yeah, I have some friends that live down in Howard County, and they've got a sign. They live on a big farm, right?
All right.
And there's a long farm road that comes into it. They've got a couple hundred acres down there, and there's a sign, caution, free range kids. Right?
I probably
drive
know
slow,
these
right?
people.
Yeah,
because I know a lot of the farms in Howard County.
Yeah, or you see the signs around the neighborhoods: drive like your kids play here, or like your kids live here. Right? Great advice, right?
Slow kid at play is my most hilarious line to me.
Yeah, yeah. That's another podcast.
That's a whole other podcast.
So anyway, right? It's great. Go outside. Just go. Just try something. Right? Try anything. I don't care. Go down to the stream and turn over rocks and see what you find. I used to tell my kids to do that.
Yeah.
I don't care what you're doing. You're not doing it here. Get out of the house.
Yeah.
Go down in the woods and figure it out. Okay.
Figure it out is advice that I give all the time.
Okay.
Figure it out.
You ready for number 5?
I'm ready for number 5. Man, we're tearing through these.
This is
I'm pretty
awesome.
proud
And,
of us.
and there's bonus number 6, which I didn't write down, but we talked about. Recognizing the sweet spot and having the good sense to stay there. Okay.
That's
Context.
a hard one.
You ready?
I have. It's good. Keep going. Go ahead.
You
go
ready
ahead.
for context?
Yes, for sure.
Right. I'm out drinking.
All right.
And my judgment is impaired because I'm having fun and I've had a couple of drinks and I'm like, oh, let's get another one, right? And I started realizing that my sweet spot is about 2 or 3 drinks. That's when I start feeling good, and that's when like I'm not overly impaired. Like I wouldn't be driving, of course,
Yeah.
but like I'm not in a position to be making like a whole lot of bad decisions. But what ends up happening is, I always have another drink, right? And I'm like, okay, I'm out of the sweet spot now, right? I've had too much. I'm not enjoying this anymore, right? Or, like whatever your sweet spot
For
is,
sure.
if it's 10 drinks, I don't care, right?
Yeah.
Or and it doesn't have to be drinking. The point is that
But that's a really good one though, because a lot of people don't
Yeah.
follow that, and I've been guilty of that in my past for sure.
Right.
I feel like I've just gotten better at that.
Yeah.
I've been able to be like,
Yeah.
all right, I'm just going to drink water for a little bit because I feel good here. And
Yeah. So you're recognizing that you're
Yeah.
in that sweet spot, right? But a lot of people don't, right? They're like, oh, I think you said earlier in the episode today, right? I'm going to do more then. Right, and like we were talking about fun as a strategy,
Yeah.
right? Like all of a sudden you're not getting the thrill anymore, so you're upping it, right?
Right, and then you become miserable because there's negative effects to that for sure.
Right, because you're out of the sweet spot, right?
Yeah.
So anyway, this
is a good one.
Yeah, and I'm really enjoying this because it's helped me tone down some of the stuff that I'm doing because I am prone, like I am prone to excess. And we jokingly say that our family motto is anything worth doing is worth doing to excess, right?
Right.
But it's not true.
Right.
Anything worth doing is worth staying in that sweet spot, right? And sometimes staying in the sweet spot means saying no, right? Like, no thanks, I've had enough. Or I don't need to work out for another hour. Or I don't need to, like answer the rest of my emails. I'm in the sweet spot. I don't need to, or
And that's tough.
I recognize I'm in the sweet spot, therefore I can do nothing, right?
So I actually talked about this with Jack yesterday. So we were talking about another thing came up, and one of my friends like asked me about something for a business venture, and I thought about the way it would go, and I was telling Jack, I was like, right now, I was like, I feel like there's a sweet spot on making money, right?
Yeah.
You make X amount of money, and I was like, I want to make X amount of money. After I make that, then I don't want to put any more hours in to make more money, right? If I can make more money doing the same amount of hours or less, then great, right? But I don't want any more time to be taking away. And I think that a lot of people get stuck because they'll go, I need to make more money. Now they're making this much money, but then now they start to spend even way more than they were comfortable with anyway, just because they can. And then they feel like they have to make more money. And then they start to make more money. And maybe their spending doesn't go up, but then an opportunity to make more money comes. But because it's society approves of it, they're like, I'm going to do it again. And now instead of working 40 hours a week like they were before, now they're working 80, 90 hours a week. And their life is just work.
Yeah.
Right? And their families are going to the wayside, their health is going to the wayside, and all of those things. And I think that's one of the best examples, I would say between fun and just working in money and material stuff.
Yeah.
I think those are where you see people not recognize the sweet spot. And really start to get outside of that, and then they become miserable.
Okay, listeners, you guys are writing all this stuff down right now, right?
I hear the scribbling of pencils and pens.
Yeah, right? Okay, so
Even some of those mechanical pencils they used to use as like little guns.
Yeah.
When they're in elementary school and middle school, and
Or
sometimes now.
you hear people clattering on their keyboards, typing
Yeah,
away.
they are typing away for sure.
So my daughter loves nails, right? And she always has like big nails that
Yeah.
she puts on, and she swaps them out, every week or a couple times a week. I don't know, but it's funny when she's typing, right? Because you hear her fingernails clacking on the keys. It's hilarious. Okay, so let's see here. Did we cover that one sufficiently? At
We
least
covered
Dave?
that one pretty well.
Okay.
This would be a good time to do any shout-outs.
Oh, I want to do a shout out to my friends at CNA Auto. I want to do 2 shout outs,
Okay.
if you don't mind, Alex.
Hit it.
I want to shout out my friends at CNA Auto. You have anything going on with your car? I actually have to get my brakes fixed right now, so I texted Adam yesterday. I'm going to take it into him next week. Get those all figured out and have not that terrible sound happening anymore. I don't care if it's tires. I don't care if it's something with your engine, or you just want like some general maintenance, like an oil change or whatever. Go to my friends at CNA Auto, right across from Mad Lab Performance. Talk to Adam. Talk to any of the people over there. They're all super nice and friendly. Sometimes they'll just give you rides back to wherever you are. Just really accommodating and honest is the most important thing. Again, CNA Auto right here in Eldersburg, Maryland.
Okay, that's
And
shout out number 1.
Number 1. Number 2, so I just took a job working at Beer Bath, which I think is a great new bar in the Eldersburg area. Owned by my friends Greg and Hector. Great people. Super nice. Everybody there is very accommodating. The beer list is amazing. The wine list is amazing. The Beer Bath idea is really, really cool. It's supposed to be really good for your skin, really relaxing. You go in there, you sit for an hour with your friends. The price is really good, and then it's all you can drink while you're in there as well. So just an amazing place. Again, located in Eldersburg, Maryland, the greatest little city in the world. I like to call it Sykesville, though, because it's both the same zip code, but that's a whole different thing that we'll talk about a different day. I think Eldersburg and Sykesville might have to have some kind of boxing match and figure out just what we're going to be called at some point. But those are my 2 shout-outs, Alex.
Well, you took one of mine, because I was going to shout out to Hector at Beer Bath as well. So
Oh, sweet.
double down, right?
Wednesday nights,
Dano.
will be bartending there, so do not forget that.
So-
please come by.
So Hector calls you Danny, though.
Yeah, he does.
Why is that?
I have no idea. So I get called Danny, Dan, and Daniel, obviously, because my name is Daniel, and those are the 3 ways that you say anything. Sometimes I get called by my last name, Gilbert. People that knew me before college, they almost all call me Danny.
Yeah.
Like my friend I called last night, he was like, Danny, when he talked to me. And so they all call me Danny. Sometimes, oddly, if people are from a different country and have an accent, especially I've noticed like Eastern Europeans, will, instead of calling me Dan, which I'll introduce, they'll always call me Danny. They'll be like, Denny, and like, which is fine. I always think, I like when people take liberties with my name, because it means they're comfortable, and it's interesting to me, whatever people call me. If it was somebody from college, they'll call me Gilbert, so they'll call me by my last name.
Right.
In fact, a lot of people that I went to college with had no idea I had a different name. They thought my first name was Gilbert the whole time.
Really?
Yep. And then when I introduced myself professionally, I would always introduce myself as Dan. So I have no idea why Hector calls me Danny, but it's fine. I always think it's hilarious, so it's fine with me, for sure.
That's funny that you say some people didn't even know your name was Dan because everyone.
It was a
called you
good
Gilbert,
amount of people
right?
too.
So I went through a similar thing years ago. I had an alter ego, and there were and probably still are people out there that don't know my name. They just refer to me as the Sheik, and that's a whole. And they call me Sheik. You know, like,
you're gonna
hey,
come into
Sheik.
the bar on one of the Wednesdays, and I'm gonna be like, the Sheik.
Yeah,
It's gonna be amazing.
Yeah, and that is more than an episode. That's like a month or two of episodes about
I want to know about
how I
this.
got the name, why I kept the name, and how I eventually like killed the Sheik and got rid of the name.
Jeez, this has got to be a comic book series.
It's a graphic novel. Right?
That's right. Dang.
So how are we doing, producer Mike? Do we have the requisite minutes on the podcast here, or do I need to tee up another topic for the lightning round?
You got 5 minutes.
Okay, Dan. Special bonus topic number 6.
Number 6.
From hero to elder.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Give me the context of this.
Okay.
one.
So I spent 35 years in the business, right? And I was working my tail off, man. I was hustling and grinding and it was awesome for the most part, right? I made a career out of like diving catches and fixing problems and like providing answers to the unanswerable, and it was a crazy life. And I was like, and then I retired, right? And I was like, okay, well, what am I now? What was I then, and what am I now, right? I was a hero for 35 years. That was my business. I was in the business of being the hero who would come in and fix stuff that couldn't be fixed, or
For sure.
or find answers that had to questions that had no answer, right? To untangle knots that couldn't be untangled, and I did it. I did it really well. But then I was done with it, and I asked myself, what am I now, right? And I asked, what is it that I still have? What do I take with me? Which is a whole nother topic, right?
For sure.
The first manuscript I wrote was called The Portable Career, right? And it's all about what do you take with you. We'll come back to that on another episode, I'm sure. But I got to thinking, like, what am I now? And I thought, okay, well, I've got a lifetime of wisdom in my pocket here, and I can dispense it. And what is the title for a person that does that? I guess elder. I don't know. I don't know what the word is.
Wise man?
A wise man, maybe. I wouldn't call myself wise, but I would call myself old. But like I saw this great picture of a Viking, right? An old Viking. And, he had scars and a gray beard and the big iron helmet. And the caption underneath it was, "Careful, boy. I'm old for a reason." Okay,
Yeah,
because I
that's
didn't get killed, right?
Right.
And okay, so that's the thing. With age comes wisdom if you're doing it right. Okay, and then maybe that's a whole nother episode. But that was my thought, right?
So I think that's a really good topic, because I think that when people go from hero to elder, like if they think that way, a lot of times people will identify themselves as their profession. Right? Mm-hmm. Actually, like Jack's mom was an ER nurse, and then she left ER. She had a really bad shoulder injury, and it was also really stressful. She loved it and was probably amazing at it. But when she left it, she struggled because she was an ER nurse. She was an emergency like person. Like anything that would happen, like she was there.
Yeah.
And she was saving lives and everything. And when she switched from doing that, she thought she lost her identity.
Right.
And she struggled with that. I think a lot of military struggle with that, right?
Yeah.
They're deployed somewhere. They're a hero. They're people that looked up to, and then they try to integrate themselves in regular society, and then they realize people don't look to them like that anymore because it's just a different arena, right? And I think that anytime that you're in a place where you identify yourself as your profession, I think that you can get in trouble in that transition to, and like not necessarily like to elder, right? They could be like somebody could retire from a military career at like 32, right?
Yeah.
So whatever you're going to transition into after, so if you are transitioning from hero to elder, we'll say, or hero to wise man, or whatever it is, that transition is very tough if you don't have something to take away from it, or if you just don't recognize that was what you were doing at that time, and now you're going to do this with your skill sets and characteristics, right? So I think that is an excellent topic.
So while I was thinking about this, by the way, thank you.
You're welcome.
But it's, you know, I look at it as a little bit selfish because it's a story about me, right? And
you have great stories, though. That's the whole part of the podcast. Star of the podcast.
Oh my God, Dan! Like if we get, right, you've only heard the A-list stories, right?
Yeah.
The B-side stories, man, they can't be published. Okay.
Hey, man, the B-side sometimes is the best side.
It is, and this is so. When I was thinking about this hero to elder concept, I thought I wasn't born a hero. I had to become one, right? And like for the first maybe 6, 7, maybe 10 years of my career, I wasn't a hero yet, right? Because I didn't know how to do it. I didn't have the skills. I didn't have the strength.
You're going to title this one Alex the Hero.
Nope.
It is going to be titled that way. Don't worry.
Okay.
I'm just kidding. I'm not kidding. But
okay, but I thought, okay, is there a label, right? Labels, remember that one? Is there a label for what I was? And I came up with the idea that I was cannon fodder, right? And I think that's what people are, right? Like you can't be a hero until you survive being cannon fodder, right? You got to go out there and you got to take your chances. You got to get outside.
You got to struggle.
You got to try new things.
You got to be uncomfortable.
You got to be uncomfortable. And that's all part of the evolution from cannon fodder. You got to become survivable, right? You got to survive that experience of being an expendable, right? Star Trek, red shirt,
you got to get old for a reason.
You got to be old for a reason. It's because you learn how not to die, okay? Damn. And maybe that's a whole nother podcast. On that
maybe
one,
it is.
I'll leave you guys hanging. Listeners, you can put down your pencils now, and you can fold that thing up, put it in an envelope that says open in 6 months, okay? And then open that envelope in 6 months and see what you find out, right? It'll be awesome. And then you'll remember this podcast for the rest of your life.
Alex?
Dan?
What time is it?
It's time to win, of course.
Time to win. Where are we going?
We're going straight to the top, baby.
You're the man, Alex.
Nope, I'm not. I'm just cannon fodder.
Thank you, everyone.